The morning cycle on Outpost Erendor 7 began like every other. Soft artificial sunlight spilled through the habitat dome, painting the metal corridors in warm gold. For a place floating on the edge of map space, it almost felt like home. Commander Ilara Voss stood by the observation glass, holding a cup of steaming coffee, watching the gas giant below swirl in slow, hypnotic patterns. Still staring at storms, a voice teased behind her. She didn't tone. Better than staring at reports. Lieutenant Orenkale stepped beside her, arms folded, eyes on the horizon. "You know," he said, "most people come out here for discovery. You came out here to avoid paperwork." Ilara smirked faintly. "Don't expose me like that in front of the galaxy." Below them, lightning rippled across the planet's clouds, silent, distant, harmless. For now, Erendor 7 wasn't a military base. It wasn't even important. Just a civilian research outpost. Scientists studying atmospheric anomalies, engineers maintaining mining rigs, families trying to build quiet lives far from crowded core worlds. Children ran through the lower corridors every morning, their laughter echoing through steel walls that were never meant to hold something so human. One of them was Lena Voss, 9 years old, curious, loud, always asking questions no one had time to answer. "Mom!" Ilara turned just in time to catch her daughter sprinting across the walkway, nearly colliding with a passing technician. "Slow down," Ilara said, kneeling slightly as Lena skidded to a stop. "I finished my simulation." Lena beamed. "The one with the storm mapping. I got 92%. "Only 92. Oren raised an eyebrow. "I expected at least 110. Lena crossed her arms. "The system is broken." Ilara laughed softly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her daughter's face. "You'll fix it one day," she said. "I will," Lena replied seriously. "I'm going to build better systems than everyone." Ilara held her gaze for a moment. There it was again, that quiet, dangerous thing parents feel, the belief that their child will grow into something bigger than the world. "Commander!" A voice crackled over the comms. Ilara stood, her tone shifting instantly. "Go ahead." Routine scan completed. No anomalies in sector grid. "Copy that." She muted the channel and exhaled slowly. Routine. Everything was always routine out here. Too routine. Oren leaned against the console beside her. "You ever think about how quiet it is?" he asked. Ilara glanced at him. "Out here? That's the point." "No," he said, shaking his head slightly. "I mean too quiet. Like we're being ignored." Ilara didn't answer immediately, because part of her agreed. "Mom, are you coming tonight?" Lena asked, tugging at his sleeve. "For what?" "The star show. They said there's a rare alignment. All the moons in the nebula. Dr. Sen said it only happens every 12 years. Ilara smiled. "I wouldn't miss it." "Promise." "I promise." Lena nodded, satisfied, then ran off down the corridor, already chasing something new. For a moment, everything felt normal again. The station hummed. People moved. Life continued. A small, fragile bubble of peace. Then, a faint flicker passed across the observation glass, so subtle it almost didn't exist. Ilara frowned. "Did you see that?" she asked. Oren looked up. "See what?" She stepped closer to the glass, narrowing her eyes. The stars looked the same. Still, silent. "Probably nothing," she muttered. But her hand tightened slightly around the coffee cup. Across the station, unnoticed by almost everyone, a long-range sensor pinged once. Then again. Then a third time. Deep in the monitoring bay, a junior technician leaned forward, squinting at his screen. "That's weird." He tapped the console again. The signal sharpened. Multiple returns. Moving fast. Too fast. Back in the command corridor, Ilara turned away from the glass. For reasons she couldn't explain, her chest felt tight, like something was coming, and far beyond the edge of the system, hidden in the darkness between stars. Something had already arrived. The alarm began at 0600 station time. It didn't start loud, just a soft chime at first, polite, almost hesitant, like the system itself wasn't sure if it should be afraid. Commander Ilara Voss froze mid-step. The coffee in her hand trembled slightly as a notification flashed across her wrist display. Unidentified contact detected range. Outer system classification. Unknown. She blinked once. Then again. That's not right. The chime repeated. Louder this time. More urgent. Across the station, lights shifted from warm gold to a cold, sterile white. Doors hissed open. Footsteps echoed faster. Voices rose in confusion. Ilara, Orin's voice snapped over the comm, sharper than before. You need to see this. I'm on my way. She set the untouched coffee down and moved, fast. The command center was already alive when she entered. Screens lit up every wall. Data streamed cascading in rapid bursts. Officers moved between stations. Tension thickened the air. This wasn't routine. Not even close. Report, Ilara said, stepping forward. Lieutenant Orin Kale turned toward her, his face pale. We've got multiple contacts, he said. Long Range picked them up 2 minutes ago. How many? Orin hesitated. 15. Ilara's stomach tightened. 15 what? He tapped the display. The main screen shifted. 15 red markers appeared, moving in perfect formation. Straight toward them. Ships, Orin said quietly. Large. Military class. The room fell into a strange kind of silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of fear. That's not possible, someone whispered from the back. This is a civilian zone, another voice added. No one sends fleets out here. Ilara didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on the screen. 15 ships. Not drifting. Not exploring. Advancing. Any identification? She asked. Communications Officer Talia Wren shook her head. No transponder signals. No registry codes. They are not broadcasting anything. Try hailing them. Already did, Talia said. No response. Ilara stepped closer to the display. The formation was precise. Too precise. Military. Disciplined. Intentional. How long until they reach an orbit? Orin checked his console. 48 minutes. That number hit harder than it should have. Not hours. Not days. Minutes. Ilara straightened. All right. Stay calm. We don't know their intent yet. Even as she said it, she didn't believe it. Open a full-spectrum broadcast, she ordered. All frequencies. Standard first contact protocol. Talia nodded, fingers moving quickly across her console. A second later, her voice carried across the system. Clear, steady, professional. Unknown vessels. This is Outpost Erendor 7. We are a civilian research station operating under neutral charter. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. Silence. The red markers continued moving. Closer. Closer. No response. Talia said quietly. Ilara clenched her jaw. Try again. Talia repeated the message, this time louder, more direct. Still nothing. Orin leaned in slightly. Ilara, they're not slowing down. She didn't answer, because she could see it. The velocity indicators, the trajectory lines. They weren't approaching carefully. They weren't adjusting course. They were coming straight at them. Bring up defense status, she said. A pause. Then, Commander, one of the engineers said hesitantly, we have 2 defense platforms. Ilara already knew. They are designed for debris and small pyrocraft. The engineer continued. Not this. Not a fleet. Ilara exhaled slowly. Keep trying to contact them. The room felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in. Behind her, a junior officer spoke up, voice tight. What if they're hostile? No one answered, because everyone was thinking the same thing. Ilara turned back to the screen. 15 ships, now inside mid-range, their shapes beginning to resolve. Angular, heavy, built for war, and still, silent. Commander, Talia whispered, they are powering weapon systems. The words hit like a physical blow. Ilara's heart began to pound. Slow at first, then faster. Open channel again, she said, her voice sharper now. Talia nodded quickly. Unknown vessels, this is your final warning, she transmitted. You are approaching a civilian installation. Power down your weapons and identify yourselves immediately. For a moment, nothing. Then, the screen flickered. Every console in the room glitched at once. Static burst across the main display. And then, it stabilized. A face appeared. Not human. Dark, scaled skin. Cold yellow eyes. A mouth that didn't understand mercy. The room went completely silent. When it spoke, its voice sounded like stone grinding against metal. Human station. Ilara felt something deep in her chest tighten. I am War Commander Dre for the Virex Dominion. No one moved. No one breathed. This system now belongs to us. The words landed slowly. Heavily. You will evacuate immediately. A pause. You have 1 hour. The transmission ended. The screen went black. Silence filled the command center. Thick, suffocating. Ilara stared at the dark display. Her mind racing. Calculating. Rejecting. Understanding. 1 hour. Behind her, someone whispered, "We can't evacuate in an hour." Another voice. "There are families, children." Orin looked at her, waiting. Everyone was. Ilara closed her eyes for just a second, and in that second, she saw Lena, smiling, running, asking if she'd come to the Star Show. I wouldn't miss it. Her eyes opened. "Start evacuation protocols," she said. Her voice was calm, but something underneath it had changed. "Get everyone to the launch bays. A beat, and keep trying to contact them. Because maybe, just maybe, this didn't have to end the way it felt like it would." Outside, the 15 warships continued forward, unstoppable. The command center didn't move. It erupted. Evacuation protocol initiated. Alert all sectors. Medical teams to launch bays. Voices overlapped. Screens flooded with alerts. The calm rhythm of the station shattered into controlled chaos. Commander Ilara Voss stood at the center of it all. Still, focused. 1 hour, Orin muttered under his breath. "That's not enough." "It has to be," Ilara replied. She turned to communications. "Open a direct channel to that ship." Talia hesitated. "They closed the connection after the transmission." "Then force it. Boost signal priority. I want them to hear me." A pause. Then, channel open. The screen flickered again. Static. Distortion. Then the same face returned. Cold. Unmoving. Watching. Ilara stepped forward. Her voice was steady, but there was steel beneath it now. "War Commander Draith," she said. "This is Commander Ilara Voss of Outpost Erendor 7. A beat. This is a civilian installation." She chose every word carefully. "We have 847 people aboard. Scientists, engineers, families." A slight pause. "Children." No reaction. "We are complying with your evacuation order," she continued. "But 1 hour is not sufficient. We request additional time to ensure a safe and complete withdrawal." Silence. The Virex commander stared at her, unblinking. Ilara pressed on. "We are not a threat to you. We have no military capability that could challenge your fleet. There is no need for violence here." Still nothing. Behind her, the entire room felt frozen. Waiting. "Grant us more time," Ilara said. "Let us leave peacefully." A long pause. Then, the creature leaned slightly closer to the screen. "You misunderstand. Human." Its voice was low. "Heavy. This is not a negotiation." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "You have been given 1 hour." A flicker of something passed through its eyes. Not anger. Not impatience. Something colder. "Use it wisely." The transmission cut. Silence slammed back into the room. Talia swallowed. "They are not going to give us more time." Orin exhaled sharply. "We didn't expect them to." Ilara didn't respond immediately. Her gaze remained locked on the blank screen. "They're giving us a chance," someone said from the back. It sounded hopeful. Desperate. "Maybe they just want the station," another voice added. "Resources, position, whatever. If we leave, maybe that's all they care about." Ilara turned slowly. "Maybe," she said, but her tone didn't match the word. because something felt wrong. Not just hostile, not just dangerous. Wrong. Commander, Orin said quietly, stepping closer. What are you thinking? Ilara lowered her voice. They didn't have to warn us. Orin frowned. What? They could have attacked immediately, she said. We have no defenses that matter. No fleet. No support nearby. A pause. So why give us time? Orin didn't answer, because he didn't have one. Maybe it's protocol, he offered weakly. Some kind of standard procedure. Oh, Ilara said quietly, it's something else. The thought lingered, unfinished, uncomfortable. Commander, a technician called out. Ilara turned. Evacuation progress. Launch bays are filling fast, the technician reported. We've got all 20 pods prepping for departure. We can fit everyone if we maximize capacity. Good, Ilara said. No one gets left behind. Another voice cut in. Power fluctuations in Sector 3. Stabilize it, Orin snapped. We need full systems online. Across the station, people ran. Children cried. Doors slammed. Families clutched bags, data drives, each other. Scientists abandoned years of work in seconds because survival didn't care about research. In the residential corridor, Lena stood near the doorway, holding her small emergency pack tightly. Mom, she asked quietly. Ilara knelt in front of her, placing both hands on her shoulders. Listen to me, she said softly. You're going to go to the launch bay with the others, okay? Lena's eyes searched her face. You're coming too, right? Ilara forced a smile. I'll be right behind you. Promise. The word hit harder this time. I promise. Lena nodded slowly. A nearby technician reached out gently. I'll take her, Commander. Ilara hesitated for just a second, then let go. As Lena was led away, she turned back once and smiled. Ilara watched her disappear into the crowd. Something in her chest tightened. Not fear. Not yet. Something deeper. Back in the command center. The countdown ticked silently in everyone's mind. 52 minutes remaining. Commander, Talia said suddenly. Ilara turned. I'm picking up something strange. What kind of strange? Talia hesitated. The Virex ships, they're adjusting position. Ilara's stomach dropped. How? They're spreading out. The main screen updated. The formation shifted. No longer a single advancing line. Now, they were moving around the station, encircling it. Orin's voice was tight. That's not standard holding pattern. No, it wasn't. Ilara stepped closer to the display, her pulse quickening. They're not just waiting, she said quietly. The realization settled in. Slow, heavy, they are positioning. A silence followed. Then, Orin said a thing no one wanted to say. For what? Ilara didn't answer, because deep down, she already knew, and far outside the station, the Virex fleet completed its formation. Perfect, unavoidable, and patient. The first escape pod launched. Pod 1 away, a technician shouted. On the main display, a small blue light detached from the station, burning hard toward open space. Trajectory clear, Orin confirmed. No hostile response. A breath, small, fragile, moved through the room. Pod 2 launching. Pod 3 prepped. Across the station, the evacuation surged forward. People packed into pods shoulder to shoulder. Children held tight to parents. Voices whispered promises no one knew how to keep. Ilara watched the screen. One pod, then another, tiny lights in the dark. Leaving. Escaping. Maybe, someone said quietly, maybe they're letting us go. Ilara didn't respond. 44 minutes remaining. Pod 5 away. Pod 6 launching now. So far, no fire, no movement from the Virex fleet. Orin exhaled slowly. Maybe we were wrong. Ilara's eyes stayed on the display. Keep them moving, she said. More pods launched. More lives leaving. Hope, thin, trembling, began to grow. Then, Commander, Talia's voice. Different. Ilara turned. What is it? Talia stared at her screen, frozen. They're locking weapons. Everything stopped. What? Orin snapped. All ships. Talia said, her voice shaking now. Targeting systems active. Ilara's heart slammed in her chest. No, she whispered. On the main display, the Virek ship shifted. Just slightly. Enough. And then, they fired. The first beam cut through space in absolute silence. It struck Pod 7. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then, light, a burst of white. And the pod was gone. No, someone whispered. Pod 7, lost, Orin said, his voice hollow. Another beam, another flash. Pod 8 destroyed. Screaming erupted across the comm channels. They are firing on the pods. They are targeting civilians. Ilara stayed at the screen, unable to move. Each blue light, blinking out, one by one. Evasive patterns, she shouted suddenly. Scatter the launches. Don't follow the same vectors. But it didn't matter. The Virek ships had already surrounded them. Every angle covered. Every path calculated. Pod 9, a flash, destroyed. Pod 10, another, gone. Each pod, 50 people, gone in less than a second. The command center dissolved into chaos. They are killing us. We can't get out. What do we do? Ilara slammed her hand against the console. Keep launching, she ordered. Don't stop. Because stopping meant death. Launching meant, maybe, pod 12 away. It barely cleared the station before. A missile struck it from behind. It vanished. Orin's voice cracked. They are not even aiming for efficiency. No, they weren't. They were aiming for fear. Pod 15, launching. Ilara watched, helpless, as it tried to break through. For a moment, it slipped between debris, avoided the first volley. Come on, she whispered. It accelerated, faster, closer to open space. A beam lanced out and split it in half. Silence. Then, another launch. Pod 19 away. This one moved differently. Lower, faster, using the expanding debris field from earlier explosions as cover. The Virek ships fired. Missed. Again. Missed. It's slipping through. Talia shouted. For the first time, something changed. A single blue light. Still moving. Still alive. Maintain that vector. Orin yelled into the comm, don't break pattern. The pod weaved through fragments of metal and fire. FTL threshold approaching. Another volley. Missed. They are almost there. Ilara felt her breath catch. Then, a flare of light. And the pod. Vanished. Gone to faster than light. Safe. For now. A single pod. Out of 20. Pod 20 launching, someone shouted. It shot forward. Straight into open space. No cover. No debris. No chance. A beam hit it instantly. Gone. Silence fell over the command center. Heavy. Crushing. On the display, only one blue light remained. Then even that faded into distance. Total survivors, Orin whispered. No one finished the sentence. Because everyone knew. 847 people. Now, almost all gone. The station shuddered violently. Another explosion tore through the hull. Power core hit. Multiple breaches. Atmosphere loss in sectors 5 through 9. Red emergency lights flooded the room. Ilara grabbed the console to steady herself. They didn't wait, she said quietly. Orin looked at her. They lied. No, worse than that. They never intended to let us leave. Outside, the Virex fleet continued firing, not to win a battle, but to send a message. And inside the dying station, that message was received. Loud, clear, and written in fire. The station was dying. Metal screamed as another explosion tore through the outer ring. The deck lurched violently, throwing people against walls, consoles, each other. Hull breach in Sector 8. Emergency bulkheads failing. We're losing atmosphere. Commander Ilara Voss barely heard any of it. Her eyes were locked on a single screen, a station schematic. Flashing red. Residential sector. Compromised. Her breath stopped. No. She zoomed in, room by room, corridor by corridor, and then, Unit R17. Her quarters. Lena's room. Flashing red.
Venting atmosphere. Everything else disappeared. Lena, she whispered. Orin grabbed her arm. Ilara, wait. But she was already moving. Running. Not as a commander. Not as an officer. As a mother. The corridor outside command was chaos. Smoke filled the air. Emergency lights pulsed deep red. People pounded on sealed doors, screaming for help that couldn't come. Ilara! Orin shouted behind her. You can't go that way, the bulkheads are failing. She didn't stop. Didn't think. Didn't hesitate. Every step felt too slow. Every second too long. Her mind replayed the same thing over and over. I promise. She turned a corner. And froze. The corridor ahead. Gone. Blown open to space. Air roared outward in a violent, invisible current, dragging debris, bodies, everything with it. A jagged hole where the station used to be. Where her path used to continue. Ilara. Orin reached her, grabbing her arm before she could step forward. You'll get pulled out, he shouted. But she couldn't hear him. Her eyes were fixed on the void. On what lay beyond it. Her daughter. Somewhere past that rupture. Alone. Or. The thought hit like a blade. Too late. No, she said again, shaking her head. No, she made it to the pods, she had to. Orin didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Because no one did. The station shuddered again. A deeper, heavier impact. Core integrity failing. A voice screamed over the comms. More explosions. Closer now. The structure around them began to warp. Ilara, we have to go. Orin said urgently. There's nothing you can do here. She staggered back a step. Her chest rising and falling too fast. Her mind breaking under the weight of what she didn't know. Then, her communicator crackled. Any survivors? A faint voice. Distant. This is Pod 19. Ilara froze. Any survivors, please respond. Her hands trembled as she grabbed the device. This is Commander Voss, she said, voice shaking. This is Commander Ilara Voss, I'm here. Static. Then. Commander, thank God, the voice replied. We made it out. We're at jump distance. Ilara's breath caught. You have to run, she said immediately. Do not come back. Get to Earth. Tell them what happened here. Tell them everything. A pause. Commander, the voice said carefully. There's something you need to know. Ilara's heart stopped. What? Another pause. Longer this time. Your daughter. Everything went silent. She's here. Ilara couldn't breathe. She made it to the pod, the voice continued. She's safe. Her knees nearly gave out. Tears broke free, floating in the low gravity, drifting like tiny stars around her face. Lena, she whispered. Alive. Out of everything. One thing survived. Then you run, she said softly. You keep her safe. You don't stop for anything. Do you understand me? Yes, Commander. Promise me. I promise. Ilara closed her eyes. For the first time since the attack began, a piece of the weight lifted. Not all of it. Never all. But enough. Tell her, she started. Her voice faltered. Then steadied. Tell her I kept my promise. Silence. I will, the voice said. The transmission cut. Ilara stood there for a moment. Just a moment. Letting it sink in. Her daughter was alive. That had to be enough. A shadow moved behind her. Orin turned. Too late. A Virex soldier. Floating just beyond the shattered corridor. Weapon raised. Ilara saw it. And something inside her, stilled. No panic. No fear. Only certainty. She straightened. Met its gaze. And spoke. You made a mistake. The creature tilted its head slightly. Confused. You think this ends here, she continued, her voice clear despite everything. It doesn't. A beat. Earth will come. Silence. And when they do. Her eyes didn't waver. They will teach you what it means to wake something that should have been left alone. The weapon fired. A flash. And Commander Ilara Voss was gone. Far away. Pod 19 jumped to faster than light. Carrying with it a child, a story, and a promise. 3 days later, Pod 19 reached Earth. It didn't arrive with fanfare. No escort. No celebration. Just a damaged escape vessel drifting into orbit, broadcasting a broken distress signal. Unidentified pod, you are entering restricted Terran space. Identify yourself. Static. This is Pod 19. Outpost Erindor 7. Silence. Then, everything changed. Repeat that transmission. Erindor 7 is gone. A pause. We are the only survivors. Within minutes, military vessels surrounded the pod. Not aggressively, protectively. It was guided into a secure docking bay. When the hatch opened, no one rushed in. For a moment, even the rescuers hesitated. Because they could see it. The faces. Ash-streaked. Hollow. Broken. And in the middle of them, a small girl. Clutching a worn-out stuffed animal. Eyes too quiet for her age. Medical teams moved in quickly. Survivors were carried out, one by one. Vitals unstable, get her to triage. His in shock. Careful, careful. The noise returned. But it felt distant. Because something heavier had already settled over the room. Understanding. A man in a dark uniform stood at the edge of the bay. Watching. Admiral Cale Rhine. Commander of the Terran Defense Fleet. He didn't move as the survivors passed him. Didn't speak. He just watched. And listened. They destroyed the pods. They waited, then fired. Children, there were children. Each word landed like a hammer. And then. They killed my mom. Cale turned. The small girl stood a few meters away. Wrapped in a thermal blanket. Hands still gripping that stuffed toy. A medical officer crouched beside her. Lena, we need to. I want to tell him. Her voice wasn't loud. But it cut through everything. The room fell silent. Cale stepped forward slowly. Kneeling so he was at her level. My name is Admiral Rhine, he said gently. What's yours? Lena. He nodded. Lena, can you tell me what happened? She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted past him. Like she was still somewhere else. Then. The alarms went off, she said softly. Mom told me to go to the pods. Her voice trembled. She said she'd meet me there. Cale's jaw tightened slightly. And did she? Lena shook her head. No. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. There were explosions, she continued. Everywhere. Her grip tightened around the toy. I saw the other pods. Her voice cracked. They were leaving. A tear slipped down her cheek. And then they just disappeared. No one moved. They were shooting them, she whispered. They were shooting people who were trying to escape. Across the room. Hardened officers. Veterans. People who had seen war. Looked away. They didn't even wait, Lena said. They said 1 hour. Her voice dropped to almost nothing. But they didn't mean it. Cale didn't speak. Because there was nothing to say. My mom called me, Lena added quietly. Cale's eyes flickered. She said to be brave. A pause. She said Earth would come. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Final. Cale stood slowly. His face had changed. Not visibly. Not dramatically. But something behind his eyes had hardened. Get her somewhere safe, he said quietly. The medical officer nodded. As Lena was led away, she looked back once. Not at the room. At him. Earth will come. Hours later, the full report was compiled. 847 civilians. 835 confirmed dead. Escape pods deliberately targeted. No warning honored. No survivors, except one pod. The report reached every level of command. Every government. Every ally. Messages flooded in. The Galactic Council called for restraint. An unfortunate tragedy. A misunderstanding. A need for diplomacy. Condolences. Recommendations. Words. Earth did not respond. No statements. No speeches. No negotiations. Instead, something else happened. Across the entire planet, military channels went silent. Civilian broadcasts cut to minimal output. Fleet communications encrypted. And then, Earth went dark. No one outside knew what that meant. But inside, every commander, every soldier, every system, understood. This wasn't hesitation. This wasn't fear. This was preparation. Deep beneath the surface, in a secured command chamber, Admiral Kale Rhine stood alone. The report hovered in front of him. 835 names. Scrolling slowly, endlessly. His aide stepped in quietly. "Sir, the Council is requesting a response." Kale didn't look away from the list. What kind of response? Diplomatic. They want to de-escalate. A long pause. Then, Kale spoke. His voice calm. Cold. Certain. "Tell them Earth is busy." The aide hesitated. "Busy with what, sir?" Kale finally turned. And for a moment, even the aide felt it. That shift. That weight. "Busy," Kale said quietly, deciding how to respond. The aide swallowed. Because something in that tone promised one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. The Terran Council chamber had never been this quiet. 200 representatives. Every nation. Every alliance. Every voice of Earth. All watching the same screen. A small girl. Wrapped in a blanket. Hands trembling. "Can you tell us what happened, Lena?" Her voice echoed through the chamber. Soft. Broken. "They told us to leave." No one moved. "They said we had 1 hour." A pause. But they didn't wait. A flicker of emotion rippled across the room. They started shooting the pods. Silence. "I saw them explode." Another pause. There were kids in them. A representative in the back covered his face. "They weren't soldiers," Lena whispered. "They weren't fighting." The video ended. The screen went black. And for a long moment, no one spoke. Then, the chamber erupted. "This is an act of war. We cannot escalate without understanding the full situation. 800 civilians are dead. And billions could die if we respond recklessly." Voices clashed. Rose. Collided. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others called for sanctions, diplomacy, restraint. "We are not savages," one representative shouted. "We cannot respond to brutality with more brutality." "And what do you call what happened to those children?" Another fired back. The room spiraled. Until. Enough. The single word cut through everything. Admiral Kale Rhine stood. Slowly. Deliberately. And the entire chamber fell silent. He didn't rush. Didn't raise his voice. He simply walked to the center. And looked at them. All of them. 3 days ago, he began quietly, 847 civilians lived on Outpost Erindor 7. A pause. Today, 12 survived. The number landed harder than any argument. They were not soldiers, Kale continued. They had no fleet. No defenses. No threat value. Another pause. They asked to evacuate. His voice hardened. They were given 1 hour. Silence. They were attacked in 47 minutes. A ripple moved through the chamber. And when they tried to escape, he stopped. Just for a second. Then finished. They were hunted. No one spoke. Because there was nothing left to argue. Kale turned slightly. Some of you are asking for restraint. His eyes swept across the room. For diplomacy. A beat. For patience. Then, tell me, he said. His voice didn't rise. But it cut deeper. What part of this situation suggests that diplomacy still exists? No answer. They did not misunderstand us, Kale continued. They did not act in confusion. They made a choice. A long silence followed. Then, a representative stood. And what are you proposing, Admiral? Kale didn't hesitate. Total mobilization. The words hit like a shockwave. Every ship. Every weapon. Every asset we have. Murmurs spread. You're talking about war, someone said. No, Kale replied. His voice turned colder. I'm talking about certainty. Another representative rose. And what exactly does that mean? Kale looked back at the dark screen, where Lena had stood, then back at them. It means, he said, that no species will ever again question what happens when they harm our people. The chamber shifted. The argument was changing. Not if they should respond, but how far they should go. And if this escalates, someone pressed. If this leads to full-scale interstellar war. Kale met their gaze. Then we end it. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. A voice from the side. Quiet. Uncertain. And the cost? Kale didn't look away. We already know the cost of doing nothing. That ended it. Not with shouting. Not with votes. But with understanding. At the front of the chamber. The Secretary General stood. His face pale. But resolved. We will proceed to vote. Hands rose. Not slowly. Not reluctantly. But all at once. Like a tide. Like a decision already made. Result confirmed, the system announced. Authorization granted. The Secretary General turned to Kale. Admiral Rhine, you have full command authority. A pause. No restrictions. Kale nodded once. Sharp. Final. Then it begins, he said. He turned. And walked out. Hours later, a single encrypted message was transmitted across all Terran military channels. Short. Simple. Unmistakable. Full fleet recall, all units return to Earth, immediately prepare for operation. Nightfall protocol. Across the galaxy. Human ships changed course. Trade vessels. Exploration craft. Warships. All moving toward one point. One purpose. And far away. In the heart of Virex space. War Commander Drath received the reports. Human fleet activity increasing. He laughed. They posture, he said. They grieve. They will talk. But somewhere, deep beneath that confidence, a small instinct stirred. One he chose to ignore. Because he didn't understand one thing. Not yet. This time. Humanity wasn't going to talk. It began quietly. One ship changed course. Then another. Then 100. Across human-controlled space, vessels of every class turned toward a single destination. Earth. Cargo freighters abandoned routes mid-journey. Exploration ships cut short missions years in the making. Deep space patrol units broke formation and accelerated home. And most importantly, every warship returned. Within days. Orbit around Earth became crowded. Then saturated. Then overwhelming. Destroyers. Cruisers. Carriers. Dreadnoughts. Hundreds of them. A fleet humanity had never assembled before. Because it had never needed to. Until now. From orbit, Earth looked the same. Blue. Peaceful. Alive. But just beyond that calm surface, something else was forming. Inside Fleet Command. Admiral Kale Rhine stood before a massive tactical display. Hundreds of icons filled the screen. Each one a ship. Each one a weapon. Each one a decision. Final count, he asked. His aide responded immediately. 212 combat-capable vessels, sir. Additional support ships en route. Kale nodded once. Status of readiness. Full mobilization within 72 hours. 3 days. That's all it would take. To prepare for war. Good, Kale said. He turned slightly. Begin final coordination. Across the galaxy, people noticed. At first, it was just unusual movement. Then, it became a pattern. Then, it became a warning. The Galactic Council sent urgent transmissions. Earth, respond immediately. This level of mobilization is destabilizing. We urge de-escalation and diplomatic resolution. No reply. They sent more messages. Longer ones. Stronger ones. Warnings. Threats. Still. Nothing. Earth remained silent. And that silence began to spread fear. In the territory of the Valari Union, fleets repositioned defensively. In the Nexari coalition, trade routes were suspended. Even neutral systems began tracking human movements. Watching. Waiting. Because no one knew what was coming. But everyone felt it. They're not negotiating, one council member whispered. They're preparing. Eventually, the council did something else. They contacted the Virex Dominion. Your actions have provoked a major power, the message read. You must issue an apology. Surrender responsible officers. Prevent escalation. War Commander Draith listened. And smiled. They ask us to apologize, he said, amused. They destroyed one of our frontier probes last year and called it defensive action. A subordinate shifted uneasily. Sir, human fleet movements are significant. Over 200 warships confirmed. Draith waved it off. 200. He laughed. Is that supposed to impress me? He gestured toward the main display. Thousands of Virex warships lit up the screen. 5,000, he said. That is what power looks like. The subordinate hesitated. Still, sir, they've never mobilized like this before. Draith's expression hardened slightly. For a species that claims to prefer peace, he said, they are remarkably dramatic. He turned away. Prepare the fleet. Defensive formation around Virex Prime. A pause. And if they come? His voice dropped. We will remind them why the galaxy fears us. Back on Earth. The final preparations were underway. Weapons systems calibrated. Shields reinforced. Targeting arrays synchronized. Every ship. Every crew. Ready. Inside one of the largest carriers. A young officer stared at a photo on his console. A woman. Smiling. His sister. Gone. Nearby. Another crew member tightened his grip on a weapon interface. Not out of fear. But something else. Determination. Because this wasn't just war. This was personal. For all of them. Commander Orin Kale stood on the bridge of the flagship beside Kale. You think they understand what's coming? He asked quietly. Kale didn't look at him. No. A pause. They think this is like every other conflict. Orin nodded slowly. And it's not. Kale finally turned. His expression calm. Cold. Final. No, he said. It's not. 2 days later. The fleet moved. Not with noise. Not with chaos. But with precision. 200 ships aligned in perfect formation. Engines igniting in sequence. A wall of power. Across every channel. A single command was issued. All units, prepare for FTL jump. On Earth. People watched the sky. Some in silence. Some in fear. Some in quiet understanding. Because they all knew. Something had ended. And something else. Had just begun. Jump on my mark, Kale said. A pause. Then. Execute. In a flash of light. The entire Terran fleet vanished. Leaving behind. A silent planet. And a galaxy. Holding its breath. The human fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of Virex Prime. Space lit up instantly. Thousands of signatures flooded the sensors. Contact confirmed, Tactical reported. Multiple hostiles, count, increasing. The number stabilized. 5,000 warships. A low murmur moved across the bridge. Even now, seeing it, felt different. A wall of metal. A fortress in orbit. Waiting. At the center of it, the Virex fleet formed a perfect defensive sphere. Layer upon layer of ships. Heavy battleships at the front. Cruisers behind. Strike craft swarming like insects between them. It was overwhelming. It was meant to be. On the flagship, Admiral Kale Rhine stood still, studying it. Standard doctrine says we turn back, Orin said quietly. Kale didn't respond. Outnumbered 25-1, Tactical added. Engagement odds. I know the odds, Kale said. Calm. Controlled. Certain. Across the void. A transmission opened. The face of war Commander Drath appeared. Confident. Smiling. Humans, he said, voice laced with amusement. You actually came. No reply. You bring 200 ships against 5,000. He leaned closer. You misunderstand your place in this galaxy. Silence. Then, Kale stepped forward. This is Admiral Rhine. His voice carried across every channel. Flat. Cold. You attacked a civilian outpost. Drath's smile didn't fade. You were given a chance to leave. You destroyed escape pods, Kale continued. A pause. Full of children. For the first time, Drath's expression shifted. Slightly. Annoyance. They were collateral. The word hung in space. Heavy. Final. Kale nodded once. Understood. The channel cut. For a moment. Nothing moved. Two fleets. Facing each other. Then. Signal all units, Kale said. Orin looked at him. Are we? Kale's eyes never left the enemy formation. Begin. The human fleet moved. Not forward. Outward. Breaking formation. Splitting into groups. Wolfpack formation, Tactical whispered. 20 clusters. 10 ships each. Spreading. Creating gaps. Weakness. The Virex fleet reacted instantly. They're dividing. Push forward, collapse their formation. Thousands of ships surged ahead. Confident. Hungry. Certain of victory. Range closing, Tactical reported. Enemy weapons locking. On every human ship. No one fired. Not yet. Hold, Kale said. The distance shrank. 100 kilometers. The Virex fleet opened fire. Space erupted. Plasma. Missiles. Energy beams flooding the void. Human shields flared. Absorbing. Deflecting. Holding. Shields at 92%. 88. Minor damage across outer hulls. Kale didn't move. Let them commit, he said. The Virex ships closed in, surrounding the scattered human groups. Just like they always did. Overwhelm. Crush. Destroy. They had done this 1,000 times before. They had never faced this. Now. The word was quiet. But it changed everything. All units, Alpha strike. The human fleet fired. Not in chaos. Not in panic. In precision. Railguns roared. Kinetic rounds accelerated to impossible speeds, tearing through Virex hulls before shields could react. Ships vanished. Not damaged. Gone. Plasma lances followed, cutting through armor like it wasn't there. Entire sections of the Virex formation collapsed in seconds. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields, detonating inside enemy vessels. From the inside out. In the first 30 seconds, 200 Virex ships were erased. Silence hit their comms. Confusion. Shock. What was that? They're hitting through shields. Reform. Reform. But it was too late. The wolfpacks moved. Not away. Through. Human ships weaved between enemy lines. Striking weak points. Disappearing. Reappearing. Target command vessels, Kale ordered. The flagship surged forward. cutting into the heart of the Virex formation. Massive railguns fired. 3 battleships shattered in seconds. Smaller destroyers followed. Circling. Hunting. It wasn't a battle anymore. It was a demonstration. On the Virex flagship, Draith stared at the tactical display. Frozen. How? He whispered. We outnumber them. Sir, his officer stammered. Their weapons, their tactics, we can't track them. Another explosion rocked the ship. Shields failing. Hull breach. Draith gripped his command console. This wasn't supposed to happen. Humans weren't supposed to fight like this. They were supposed to talk. A human destroyer appeared on his screen. Close. Too close. Weapons locked. Draith braced. And then, it passed. Without firing. A transmission came through. Calm. Cold. War Commander Draith. Draith's breath caught. Admiral Rhine sends his regards. A pause. You are not worth killing yet. Silence. Watch. The transmission cut. And the battle continued. Hours passed. Then more. The Virex fleet collapsed. Ships tried to retreat. But there was nowhere to go. Wolf packs hunted them. One by one. Systematically. Relentlessly. Enemy fleet breaking, Orin reported. Kale nodded. No satisfaction. No triumph. Just completion. Reform the fleet, he said. A pause. Prepare for orbital phase. Below them, Virex Prime waited. And for the first time in centuries, the Virex understood something. They had made a mistake. A fatal one. The battle was over. What remained of the Virex fleet drifted in ruin. Burning hulls. Broken formations. Silent wreckage stretching across orbit. And above it all, the Terran fleet reformed. 200 ships. Scarred. Untouched where it mattered. Watching the planet below. Virex Prime. A world that had never known war. Until now. Open a channel, Admiral Kale Rhine said. A moment later. The connection established. The Virex High Council appeared on screen. No longer confident. No longer proud. Afraid. Admiral, one of them began, voice shaking, we condemn the actions taken against your outpost. It was an unauthorized. Stop. The word cut through everything. I am not here to negotiate, Kale said. Silence. You will surrender War Commander Draith, he continued, along with every officer involved in the Erindor 7 massacre. A pause. You have 2 hours. The transmission ended. Below. Chaos erupted. Governments argued. Military leaders resisted. Civilians panicked. Because they had seen what happened in orbit. And they understood what came next. 2 hours passed. No surrender came. Kale stood on the bridge. Still. Unmoving. Open a planetary channel, he said. His voice spread across the entire world. Every city. Every home. Every screen. People of Virex Prime, he said. You have been given a choice. A pause. Your leaders have chosen not to surrender those responsible for the murder of 835 human civilians. Silence. They have chosen to protect the guilty. Another pause. So now. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You will face the consequences of that decision. Across the planet. Millions listened. Frozen. Afraid. You have 24 hours to evacuate. Shock rippled through cities. Take your families. Take your children. A pause. Leave. The transmission ended. And the countdown began. Panic consumed the planet. Spaceports overflowed. Ships launched beyond capacity. Families fought for passage. Some refused to believe it. Some refused to leave. Some simply couldn't. Above. The Terran fleet waited. Silent. Watching. On the Virex flagship. War Commander Draith stared at the chaos below. For the first time. He understood. He opened a channel. Admiral Rhine. Kale appeared. Draith's voice was different now. Stripped of arrogance. This was my order. A pause. Not theirs. He swallowed. I will surrender myself. I will face whatever justice you demand. Silence. Spare my people. Kale looked at him, and for a moment, something flickered behind his eyes. Not hesitation. Recognition. You had 47 minutes, Kale said quietly. Drath froze. You fired on escape pods. A beat. Full of children. Silence. I gave your people 24 hours, Kale continued. Another pause. That is more mercy than you showed mine. The channel closed. Drath lowered his head. And for the first time in his life, he felt fear. 24 hours passed. Evacuation was incomplete. Millions escaped. Billions remained. Kale stood at the viewport, watching the planet. Status, he asked. Evacuation ongoing. Significant population still surface side. A pause. No one spoke. Because everyone knew what came next. Kale closed his eyes. Just for a second. Then. Begin. The fleet opened fire. Kinetic rods fell from orbit, striking with the force of nuclear weapons. Cities vanished. Shockwaves rippled across continents. Plasma bombardments followed. Melting infrastructure. Crushing industry. Military bases. Gone. Weapons systems. Gone. Command centers. Gone. The planet began to break. Atmosphere igniting. Oceans boiling. The surface tearing itself apart. And still. Ships fled. And the Terran fleet. Let them go. We are not here to kill them all, Kale said quietly. We are here to end this. Hours passed. Then more. Until. There was nothing left to destroy. Cease fire. Silence returned. Below. Virex Prime was no longer a world. It was a warning. Kale opened one final channel. To the surviving Virex ships. To the galaxy. To anyone listening. You wanted to send a message, he said. You wanted the galaxy to see what happens when someone stands against you. A pause. Now, watch carefully. His voice turned colder. Sharper. Final. This is what happens when you murder our people. Silence. Across every system. Every species. Every world. They watched. And they understood. The Terran fleet turned. And began the journey home. Behind them. A dead world burned. In the years that followed. No one attacked human colonies. No one targeted their civilians. No one tested their resolve. Trade flourished. Alliances shifted. Enemies disappeared. Because one truth had spread across the galaxy. Not as a rumor. Not as a warning. But as fact. Humanity preferred peace. But if pushed, they would cross any distance. Pay any cost. And carry any burden. To protect their own. And carved into the remains of Virex Prime. A message endured. Simple. Unforgettable.